the biggest names in the movie business.
An icon living.
Tyler Perry.
There's been many times that I was struggling and homeless and broke and out on the street, and $20 would have made the difference between me having food for a week or not. If I went through this and I made it to a higher level, even though I feel like there's higher for me to go, you can too. What is your higher? Whatever that is for you, reach for that. I feel like we all have a candle that we're given to carry, and that light is your destiny. That light is the thing that's going to lead you to your path. Sometimes you don't have the whole picture. You just have this little bit of light, and you just have to keep moving forward. So if it's in you, and you can't shake it, and you dream about it, and when you want to walk away from it, you still dream. That's God telling you to keep going. Confederate Army base, and I want you to hear this, which meant that there was Confederate soldiers on that base plotting and planning on how to keep 3.9 million Negroes enslaved. Now that land is owned by one Negro.
Legendary. I love me some black people. I'm so excited for this. This is great. They said it wasn't real. And listen, YouTube, y'all give it up for them. I mean, just give it up. This is really amazing. Bring everybody here. Financial literacy. It's something we all need, and I just applaud both of you for this. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is we're going to have a very high-level conversation today. We're going to talk about the business, but before we start, I just wanted to, how does it feel? Is it still surreal? We know your backstory. You used to sleep in your car. You got 12,000 people that enthusiastic on a Sunday like this. So do you ever just wake up and think like how drastically your life has changed in a relatively short amount of time? Every day, man, every day. I don't take one moment for granted. Not one person holding up a camera right now. Not one person clapping. I don't take it for granted because, you know, this could have been anybody in this seat, but for some reason God gave it to me. So I'm just grateful that I have the opportunity to walk this path.
So let's get into it. You can take your seats now, ladies and gentlemen.
They're so excited.
Yes. This is so like a concert.
All right, now sit down so we can talk here.
So, you know, sometimes in life, you don't have a full appreciation until you see it in person. So, you know, I'm a big history buff. I read about Egypt my whole entire life. I always saw documentaries on Egypt, read books on Egypt, but I recently went to Egypt a few months ago, and I didn't have a full appreciation for Egypt until I went there, until I saw the Valley of the Kings, until I saw Luxor, until I saw the pyramids, and it changed my perspective because I got to see it in person. I say that to say, I heard about your studio. I saw it on television, I saw it on social media, 330 acres. I didn't have a full appreciation until we got to tour the studio. Thank you for your hospitality, by the way. So we got to tour your studio, 330 acres, and just to see the detail, to see he has a mansion that's on 4 different angles, and each angle is a different shot, it's a different look. And each angle has a different exterior look, and each angle has a different interior look. The White House, they said, is the best replica of the White House in the world.
I gotta correct you. The people said that it's a better version of what the White House should be.
Yeah, amazing. He's building a New York City replica of a street in New York City. He has like Louisiana. I could keep going on and on, but I'm trying to paint a picture for you to have a full appreciation, and that's just the outside. He has 12, I believe 12 actual physical buildings where they film shows in as well. So to see that is amazing. And person that was giving us a tour put in perspective, said, what he's done has not been done by a person in 100 years. Like the last person was like Warner Brothers. Like Disney, like Walt Disney. For that. So it's like, in a century, nobody has done what he's been able to accomplish with building that studio. It's something that's extremely rare. And they told me that you could fit all of the major Hollywood studios combined on that lot. That's how big the lot is. So let's start the conversation off with that. What I found interesting is that they told me it's a studio real estate business, where now you're actually leasing the land to other Hollywood studios. So Black Panther 2, I think, was shot there. So I just found that so interesting. Oh, they're gonna go crazy all night. Anything I say just happened. So I found that so interesting because I never thought about it like that from a business perspective, where it's like you've built a studio where nobody really has what you have. So now you've become the landlord to Hollywood, and they have to lease and rent the studio from you. Can you talk about that?
The way I grew up, my father was a contractor. He would build houses, and I would watch him build these houses. He'd come home, he'd make his $800. He'd be so happy by Friday he made $800 that week. But I watched the white man that owned the house sell it and make $80,000. And I never understood why my mother and father could not think about or would not think about building their own house and selling it. So I always wanted to be the man who owned the house so that I could rent it out, so that I could sell it if I wanted to. But that was it. Ownership has been so important for me, for everything. And that is what has kept us as Black people down so long. The lack of ownership, the lack of an ability to be able to own. So for me to be in this position at this time is not only mind-blowing for me, but I also think about all the people that paved the way for us to sit here, right? I don't go through those gates at work. I don't show up at all thinking about, this is all about me, this is all about me, because I would have been out a long time ago. When I show up, I'm thinking about the thousands of people who look like y'all coming to work every day into the studio, right? I'm thinking about the cast members who would have never been able to get on shows in Hollywood, or hopefully they would have made it to a show in Hollywood, coming to work and making, more money in 2 weeks than they thought they'd make in their lifetime. My payroll, and I've said this, I want you to get it, my payroll last year, not for bills, but payroll to people, mostly Black and brown, was $154 million. So to be in that position, to own that land, because I don't use the stages. When I built all the stages, I was building them for the purpose of leasing them to other productions, because I didn't have use for them, because that's why I built the four-sided mansion and built all of these, the White House and all. I work around the studio in those areas so that the specific purpose of those buildings that I named after Black icons, after going to Hollywood and seeing all of these great buildings, that were owned by people who didn't look like us, and they had their names on the stages and their names on streets. I'm like, well, can I see one Black person somewhere? Nowhere. So all 12 sound stages are named after people, famous Black people who have made their mark in Hollywood, and it's right here in Atlanta. So that makes me feel great to say I was able to do that.
I'm glad you spoke about the buildings. Will Smith, Deion Carroll, Ozzie Davis, John Singleton, Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, Whoopi Goldberg. I got them all?
Number one, Oprah Winfrey.
Oh, no.
Oh, I gave it up?
Don't give it. So number one, Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah.
I wanted to save her for last. Obviously, number one, right? Probably at the top of your mind, you're thinking biggest inspiration. You said something the other day on an IG post. I was like, really like studying you. At age 30, she invited you to an event that changed your life forever. And from it, you said something very so simple, but it's complex to do. You said, from that event, I realized I had to dream more and dream bigger. What was it about that event that clicked for you at that moment?
Here's the beauty about people like Oprah in my life. Just the level of exposure. That's what I want to be to many people, is that if I can show you something great, then you, in your mind, I'm hoping that you can realize that you can achieve it too. That's what being in that party. I was 30 some years old. Diary of a Mad Black Woman. It was about to come out, or it just come out. Nobody really knew who I was in the room. And I felt so small. I felt like I didn't deserve to be in the room. I didn't feel worthy. And I'm sitting there looking at, Diana Ross and Sidney Poitier and Maya Angelou and all these people in this room going, what am I doing here? And I said it out loud. And Yolanda Adams was sitting next to me. We were sitting at the table. She said, you belong here. And that stuck with me to this day, understanding that I belong in the room. And if I can get more of us, to understand worthy, if I can get you to understand that you are worthy to be in the room, there ain't no devil in hell that will stop you from getting in that room if you can get it in your mind. You got to be able to get it in your mind first. If you can get your mind right, if you can get it there first, because let me tell you something. I was reading this article about Jewish people that survived the Holocaust. And in the article, it said that as scientists were studying them, that their DNA changed from all the trauma. Their physical DNA changed from the trauma. So imagine, what if there was a study on us as descendants of slaves and what we have been through, and how much that would have affected us. So there's this mentality, from one to another, that makes us always think that we are not worthy or we don't deserve. But if you can get past that, I'm not talking about in your mind, oh yes, what they say, name it and claim it, God's gonna do it. No, I'm talking about actually believing in your mind that you deserve it. I swear to you, your life will shift. Because I got from a place of, when she said that to me, I started to understand that what was happening in my life, that was supposed to happen, I'm supposed to be there. And I tell you one other thing that I learned about, as I'm traveling, meeting other people, white folks who have money and live their lives, have been living this kind of life way longer than we ever have had access or opportunity to. They don't apologize. They feel like they deserve it. And once we get there too, it's gonna be pandemonium for the success that we can have. But we gotta unwork all the negative thoughts, all the negative things that have happened to us. We've got to unwork all those voices in our head that tell us you're not worthy, you're never going to make it, you're never going to be anything. Because when mama said it and daddy said it and they said it at school, that stuff will carry you through everything in your life. And in the back of your mind, be a nail shutting every good door and opportunity. And you will find yourself walking away from some things that were definitely yours, but you couldn't get to worthy, realizing that you deserve it. That's what I had to work on. Can I say this about Spike Lee? Because you mentioned him at the soundstage. Spike, y'all know Spike has some things to say about me. Spike wasn't too nice at one point. But I wanted to dedicate that stage to him because you cannot negate the work that the man has done and what he has contributed to the industry. I probably wouldn't have had the opportunities that I had it not been for him. And what I would really want us to understand in business is, what I've watched other races do is they don't work from their heart, they work from their head. And a lot of times with us as black people, I'm mad, I ain't gonna sit down and give a shit, I'm giving you, and you're missing the opportunity to come together. So if you would start working more when it comes to business, more in your head above your heart, where you can forgive people and move on and honor them for what they've done, as well as you can find, I believe that you'll find yourself in a great synergy that can help change your trajectory in your career.
Clap it up for that. So I want to talk about scaling, something that you've been real big on. And your studio, you had 66,000 square foot studio. Then you went to 60 acres. Then you went to 330 acres. So I want to know the process and actually scaling up, but also the mindset and not being satisfied. But even 66,000 square feet is a big space, and 60 acres is definitely a big space. So most people would have been completely fine with that. What made you want to have the vision to go 10 times bigger where you are now?
I want to talk about God a little bit, because when you get into that, that's the only explanation I have, right? I started out in this space and I'm like, great, I got this space, I bought this building because I only wanted to do things that I could pay cash for. So I bought this building and I started business, and we're going to do Diary of a Mad Black Woman. And the producers meet them for the first time, they walk in and say, you can't do a movie out of this building, is too small. So then I'm like, okay, all right, I'll go find another building. So I go over to Krog Street. There's a Krog Street Market, y'all know where that is? All of that was my second studio. And I get there and I'm like, okay, great, I wrote a check for it, here we are, I'm gonna build it up, this is my studio, this is the only place I'm gonna have. And the neighbors were complaining, there was no parking. We were outgrowing the place no sooner than I could put the last nail up in the windows. So to have the growth happening, I was always running to catch up to it. I was always behind it, trying to catch up, trying to understand what was going on. And that is when you have tremendous faith and you just completely understand that things that are happening for you, because let me tell you something, you can be as talented as you want, you can have all the best ideas in the world, but if God doesn't line things up for those things to happen, I don't know how they come together. It may work for other people, but for me it took a lot of prayer, a lot of honoring what I was doing, a lot of honoring the people that I was working with during this time, right? So I learned very early on after Krog Street that I didn't want to build anymore. I was content. This is it. I'm gonna stay right here. Well, I don't care if we don't have parking. I don't care if the neighbors are complaining. I'm staying here. But what I found in those situations, if I don't move when I get that sense that God is telling me to move, all hell breaks loose. So I ended up on Channel 2 News. I hired a contractor to do some work on Krog Street. That Negro didn't pull one permit. So it was crazy. So I had a lawyer at the time. He told me to go over to Greenbrier and look at this building. It was like, I don't want to go over there. So I went over late one night. And I'm standing in front of the gates. I'm like, God, if this is you telling me to do this, make it clear. I got out of the car and I'm walking around, and I promise you, I have photos of this. There were Bible scriptures taped to the gates, and my favorite one was there, which was Psalms 91. I said, okay, I'll move. Came over, moved there. I'm like, great, I don't have to move anymore. This is going to be great. I'm done. 2 years we had outgrown the place. So if you don't even remember anything else I say about that, remember, build for where you're going and not necessarily where you are. Because you're where you are may be too small to fit what is truly the destiny that you have. So don't be afraid of that.
Yeah, powerful. So I'm gonna stay with that because you said scaling, but we got a lot of entrepreneurs in here. Entrepreneurs, make some noise for yourself right now. One of the things that you had from day one was the awareness to build brand and sticking to the brand. I know recently you told the story how Tom Jones had the marquee at a theater you were going to perform, and you're like, no, take it down because I'm performing it tonight. Can you talk about the importance of being really diligent and intentional about building brand?
Right. And in the beginning, I caught a lot of crap. It's like, why does Negro put his name on everything? Why is Tyler Perry this, Tyler Perry that? But I understood that, like Coca-Cola, if you see that Coca-Cola can, it doesn't have Pepsi on it, right? It's going to say Coca-Cola. It's their brand. So in trying to get people to remember it, there were a few things that I wanted to do. When I would do my shows, at first I was a stickler for time. Had to start on time because everybody say black people are late. So at 8 o'clock, I start on time. That was things that people notice. He always starts on time. It's those little things. Like if you have a store, you say you're going to open at that certain time, be there with the doors open, waiting for people to come in. Be early. Those little things, that level of professionalism will help build your brand. Because if somebody else had a bad night and they still out at the club while you open, work it, you are building it as you go, right? So for me, it was just so important that every time somebody heard that brand, they got a level of excellence that was the absolute best that I could do at that time. Yeah, so that's what was important to me.